Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody on Instagram. Hi, everybody on Facebook. Today, I want to talk about arts and business together. Whenever I meet attorneys, they're always so shocked at the work that I do. They're always so shocked about my work with artists. I work exclusively with artists and creatives and business, meaning that my law firm, the Gal Law Group, is the legal and business team for lots of artists and exclusively artists because we have made it our mission to support artists in all of their business and legal endeavors. This includes work authorization, so the ability to work in the US on an artist visa. This includes business formation, so the ability for the artist to protect her artistic work and her artistic services and earn income legally but also properly. This also extends to the protection of the brand identity of the artist. And this also extends to the types of contracts that an artist would need to deliver her services. So people are always shocked at this. And when they get shocked about this, I'm always a little bit flabbergasted because in my head, I'm thinking, what do you not expect artists and creatives to make money? And whenever I say this to them or respond back to them, they're always shocked because they still have in their mentality, they still have in their head this idea of, the starving artist, right? The artist that is, working on her show or working on his piece and struggling for money. And I don't think that that doesn't exist. I think that that stereotype existed in the past and still probably exists for lots of artistic and creative people. But on the flip side of that, there are very sophisticated artists who have made it their mission to actually execute their work in a professional way and in a protected way, which is why they need an attorney, right? So there are many artists and many creatives who I represent and who exist who want to be able to legally make money and to make that money grow. So I want us to define a couple of terms, right? Let's define artists and creatives. These are kind of very vague words, but I'm going to define them. So when I say artists and creatives, I basically mean anybody that uses artistry and creativity in their day-to-day work. So that doesn't mean, for example, that a business person doesn't use artistry or creativity in her day-to-day work. It just means that their focus is business, but they're creative with their business endeavors. I mean it quite literally. I represent anybody that is a graphic designer, to a TikToker, to a gamer, to an actor, to YouTube personalities, to designers, fashion designers. These are the artistic archetypes that I represent. And of course, I'm not limited to any sort of artistic discipline. And I always preface this: I have personal knowledge on theater and film and TV and photography because I participated in those worlds before I became an attorney, and I studied that in undergrad. But I am not specialized in any artistic discipline. I represent all creatives who want to monetize their artistry and who want to take their career to the next protected level. And we do this through filing the artist visa, getting the artist visa approved, forming the business, trademarking the brand, so you're protecting your brand identity, and then drafting the contracts, the necessary contracts to govern the artist's professional relationships. Now, for those of you who are watching and who are thinking like this doesn't happen, this absolutely happens. Think about all of your favorite high achieving artists that are working in this, that exist, right? Rihanna, Eminem, Jeff Koons, all of these different artists and creative archetypes have absolutely in place legal structures such as business, trademarks, and contracts to protect their work and to allow their work to flourish legally without any problems. Because the most difficult thing in a creative person's life, and anybody's life for that matter, is to have problems and then have to call a lawyer to resolve them, right? Think of us as the preventative care that you would engage in before you have a problem. So What is an artist? In my perspective, an artist can be anybody that is a graphic designer, fashion designer, a YouTuber, a gamer. These are all different creative archetypes, right? This is important. It's also important to understand the mindset shift, which is so critical to being able to take your work to the next level, right? Being business minded with your creativity, these two words are not oxymorons, they're not opposites. In fact, you see my hands going together, they work together. They serve different purposes and functions. Your artistic self and your creative self is what you're selling, and the business part is what is the shell protecting that artistry and that creativity that you are selling and making money off. Because I don't think, even if there are starving artists that exist, I don't think everybody wants to be a starving artist. I think people study things, study artistic endeavors and creative endeavors because they eventually want to make money off that. Nobody goes to college to study theater to eventually start waitressing at tables. Again, a very common archetype that I'm describing probably still happens, but you don't have to do that. And I'll give you an example of my client who is a theater professional. My client is a theater professional, literally acting on stage and acting on all different types of platforms, also giving workshops because of his very distinctive way of performing and acting. Well, what happened? What was the trajectory of this typical client? Because a lot of people are shocked to hear that a theater professional, somebody who's acting on stage, is actively protecting his work so that he can make money off it. Right? That is the goal, right? To protect your work and make money off it so that you have longevity, so that you have a long standing career. So for him, we did his artist visa multiple times. We opened up his company. So I fully incorporated his company. And there are different ways that we can do this, right? We can do a single managed LLC. We can do a member managed LLC. We can do all different types of legal structures to execute the vision that you have for yourself. But I'm going to keep it simple in this video because this video is just about defining terms. The first term, like I said, we define artists and creatives. And now I'm talking about what business means in this context, or specifically illustrated through this client. Right. For this client, we created the LLC. So we protected his personal side, so protected him as the individual from his business endeavors, because that's how he makes money as an actor. And we also drafted the service contracts to be able to govern the relationship that he has with the people who are utilizing his services. This is very, very critical because if you do not have a contract in place, well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to go to a small claims court because you don't have a contract in place. You're going to have to go to an attorney and get an attorney letter because you don't have a contract in place. This is very, very common in the photography world, or let's say like major events world, like a wedding, where people have different vendors and they're not governing their contract. Think of a contract as just the measurement of expectations between you and the party that wants to utilize your services. And this is very basic. If expectations are not managed, if expectations are not established right off the bat, this is going to be really somebody who just joined with my name. Hi, Anastasia Electra. If this is not established right off the bat, you're going to have problems, right? This is this is a very basic contract, a very basic concept that we apply also to contract law. If you're going to an ice cream shop and you buy something like a vanilla scoop and it says vanilla, and your expectation that it's going to taste like vanilla because you asked if it was vanilla and the sign was vanilla, said it was vanilla, and you taste that ice cream scoop and it actually tastes like lemon. Well, guess what? There is a violation of your expectations. There's a violation of what you expected as a consumer. Now, your steps are to sue that establishment or ask for your money back. But if the expectations are already legally in place, right? The contract outlines what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, how much you're going to get compensated for, whether or not you're going to do it in steps or not. Then the expectations are met, and you can always point out to the contract. And guess what? If this goes to litigation, you're always going to point out to the contract, and the judge is most likely going to be on your side because it's all written down and established. Now, of course, there are certain works that cannot be, or problems that cannot be anticipated through the contract, but that's not what the role of the contract is. It's not like a band-aid to cover up a big wound. It's, like I said, to measure basic expectations, especially if we're dealing with an example such as a graphic designer that is creating a logo for a client, right? You need to have that expectation mapped out throughout a contract. And you, as a graphic designer, you need to earn your money through your LLC. So these are terms that arts and business, a lot of people will think are oxymorons, but they are not. They're not opposites. They work together and they have different functions. Now, it is up to you as the individual to understand what your worth is as an artist and as a creative. Are you going to continue to be that artist or that creative who is still mindset wise maybe thinking that your work is like a side hustle, or thinking that this is something that you're doing on the side? Totally fine, right? You just need to understand what comes with that territory, right? You need to understand how people will perceive you, how hard or how easy it is to get clients, what your authority is going to be. All of that comes with the territory. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that you need to understand what it is so that you can ultimately deal with it. Or are you going to be the type of individual that's going to really change your mindset, buckle down, and really understand and be honest with yourself with what type of creative you want to be? Because some people don't care. They're like, hey, this is how I want to work and this is how I'm going to do it. Great. Then you're not the type of person that needs a legal and business team to take you to the next level. Other people's mindset is different. Other people are like, you know what? I'm an actor and I want to continue to work. I want to do my workshops, and I want to make money through my workshops. I want to have my brand, and I want to establish my brand, and I want to make money because people know of me and they trust me, and I want to be able to scale, right? This is all mindset. I'm not saying that either is good or bad. I'm just saying that they're different. And our services serve for those individuals who want to, again, create that protection for that artistry, create that shell so that they can properly operate their artistry as a business, because their goal is to monetize and make money, right? Your goal is to make money through your artistry. So you need to do it the right way. You need to do it the way that protects you, and you need to do it in the way that provides you longevity within your field. Right. And all of this requires a business structure. All of this requires the protection of the brand identity. All of this requires the structuring of the relationships between you and your patrons, and you and the people who are utilizing your services. Now, a lot of the times people are like, well, I don't want to sign a contract. I don't want to deal with contracts. My clients don't want to deal with contracts. And that's totally fine. Like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with operating in that way. I'm just saying that that's this type of mentality, and operating under the proper legal structures is this type of mentality. And it all depends on which direction you want to go in your life. So that example of that client where I created his LLC to be able to monetize his acting creativity and his acting work is somebody that wants to work long term and earn long term. I'll give you another example of a completely different field. I have a client who is a marketing specialist and a content creator. So this essentially means that she is a creative person who creates content for herself and creates content for her brands. Um, so this is something that, is totally normal. Can I be a fashion? I'm going to answer this question. Can I be a fashion designer and modeling agent at the same time? In terms of what? In terms of your artist visa, or in terms of running a company? For a company, I also need to establish what the point of the company is. This is established through the operating agreement, which is the contract that governs what the business is like, what the life of the business is. So this is actually a little bit important, because that is what establishes what the company is about. Yeah, absolutely. If you qualify, right? I can't tell you whether or not you actually qualify as a fashion designer and a model, but I have clients who have multiple titles. So very often, I'll give you an example. I have a client who is a modeling model and also a fashion designer. I have a client that I'm filing who is a model and also a model coordinator. So you can absolutely do these. I call this double barreling. There might be other attorneys who don't do it. I do it all the time if the client qualifies. Does having an LLC make it easier to build trust with companies for brand deals? 100%. This is a great question, and it deals with the marketing of the company and the approach that you have to how much money you want to earn. So think of it like this. Think of me, right? I'm a law firm. I have a company. I have a particular type of company. I have a PLLC, which is for people who have like a license to practice something. So think of dentists, lawyers, doctors. So I have a company. I don't know if I would command the same trust if I was just Electra Yao, the lawyer. That doesn't mean that I'm not a good lawyer, right? I'm a good lawyer whether I am Electra Yao, the lawyer, or Yao Law Group PLLC, right? That doesn't take into consideration like the knowledge and the experience that I have. But right off the bat, if you're just looking at Electra the lawyer and you're looking at Yao Law Group PLLC, you're going to see that I'm an established company, right? And that gives you trust because what does a company mean? A company means procedures. A company means experience. A company means that when there's a problem, we probably have experience on how to deal with the problem. And number two, it gives trust. People will see you as more than just an individual. So when people have the mentality that it's just one singular person that is running the show, well, you know how people are. They start to freak out. They're like, "Oh shoot, what happens if he gets sick? What happens if she gets sick? What happens if she's traveling? What happens if he's traveling?" All of these things go into a person's mind and it erodes the trust that can happen. Now, certain companies will, want you to have an LLC because they want you to invoice them through that LLC. For their business structure and how they operate with freelancers, they're going to want you to have the LLC because it just makes sense for them to pay you through your EIN. And that's great for you because all of this stuff can be a write off, right? These are all business expenses that you can write off, right? But I would say your decision to make an LLC should have less to do with how companies are going to deal with you, but should be more about where you see yourself. I will say it time and time and again. This is a mindset shift. It's kind of like the decision that you make from, I'm going to leave my home country and I'm going to go study in the US. That's a mindset shift. I'm going to graduate from the US and I'm going to start working in the US. That's a mindset shift. All of these things are mindset shifts. Now, once you decide what you want to be, and I call this reverse engineering, you kind of have to like look at yourself in the future and say, okay, who do I want to be in 5 years? What sort of company do I want to have? I'll continue my example of the marketing person. She wants a branding agency, right? And on your O1, I can absolutely create a company for you. So she wants a branding agency. So not only does she want her company to represent her also as a content creator, but she also wants to create content and be known as a marketing agency. She wants to be known as a company that if you are a food brand or if you're a restaurant, you're going to go to this person because this person knows how to market businesses. So this is absolutely possible. So Anastasia, this is a common misnomer. No, you can only apply for the artist green card if you qualify. Having multiple O1s does not mean that you qualify for the O1. Probably because I've been receiving phone calls and messages. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Let me try to fix this. I will come back on. I think it's because somebody called me. Sorry, I've been receiving phone calls. Sorry, guys, on Instagram. I've been receiving phone calls, so that's why I was muted. But what I was saying is, no, you don't go from O1 to EB1A unless you qualify. So if you qualify, then yeah, you can file for the green card. You can also use your business as part of the green card discussion, which I've done. So I represent basically someone who created content creation in his country of origin. I can't give too many details because this person is very, very well known. But in this person's country of origin, basically created the concept of content creation, did not exist before this person. And I absolutely used this person's agency in the discussion of the lead and critical role part of the green card. So you can be very strategic with the LLC, whether you're going to use it to serve as your agent petitioner in your O1 or O1 extension, or whether you're going to use it to develop a company. That company will sponsor you. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with a company. It becomes a little bit more interesting in how you can live out and play out your professional career. It really just depends on what your goals are. And this is something that I can't help you with. I can sound it out with you, like we can have a conversation about it. I can coach you and try to dig deep with you to try to figure out what you want. But a company is not for everybody. Like, not everybody cares. I mean, like, that's just the reality of it. Some people are like, Electra, I don't want to do it. I'm not interested. I just want to like kind of float around the way I'm doing it. And like I said, that's totally fine. But for those who kind of want that company, they want to make money, they want to scale, they want to be to six figures, all of which is very possible. I represent people who make six figures and started out with zero when they came to me. I represent somebody who, when she came, when I did her O1, she had one job. We got her O1. We continued to get her O1. She started off with no followers. I was like, you need to do content creation. You need to be an influencer. And she's one of the top influencers for what she's doing in her field. My visa expires 2027. When should I start applying? Do I need to apply right now? No, you don't need to apply right now. You could come back, closer to 2027. It's a little bit early now. Like I said, it's very important what your mindset is. If you are not sure where you want to go, then we can have a call, we can talk about it, and we can kind of flesh it out. But I think that you need to also be very realistic. And this is where like the tough love, like lawyer comes out of me. It's basically, you need to make money. I mean, for those of you who are in New York, it's kind of like a no-brainer. If you're living in a high cost of living city, you're going to need to make money. Even if you're being supported by, like, I don't know, family, friends, partners, whatever it is, you need to have some sort of, income. It's just the lay of the land. It's just kind of how it works. And the best way to make money is to have a business. Coca-Cola is not an individual. It's a business. Good American is not an individual. It's a business. Every successful company that you know is exactly that, a company. Even somebody or something that represents itself as an individual is a company. And also think about what a company can bring you. We can talk about how the company can help Green Card and O1, but think about if you are interested in like making an impact in your community, you can do that through a company. That impact in the community, that is exactly green card language arguments that can be made. If you have mentorship programs, if you are teaching young people, if you have strategic partnerships with different organizations, all of that elevates your profile as an individual, so distinguished, and all of that elevates the profile of the company, distinguished organization. So it's all very related, right? Sometimes we look at things as like, I don't know, like separate boxes. And that's just not how it works. That's just not how it is. I'll give two examples as to how things are connected. I'll give it an O1 example and I'll give it a business example. In the O1 world, if I do not have your contracts and your signed agent agreement and your signed immigration forms, I cannot go to the labor union. I cannot. It doesn't matter how beautiful the portfolio is. They will reject me. They will reject my request. And I can't not have a letter of no objection. It's a legal technical requirement, which means that if it is not included within the petition, it's grounds for denial right off the bat. So it is connected. The contracts that I draft for O1s, the contracts that I draft for your work as an O1 holder is directly related to the labor union, which needs to approve you for the O1. The contract that I'm drafting for your business, your operating agreement, whether you choose to have a business partner or whether you choose to be a member managed company, that's connected to how you're going to run your business. And if you make any changes, how those changes will be governed. And if you're married or have children, what happens to your shares in the event, knock on wood, something happens to you. So all of this is interconnected. The contract drafting is extremely important. And I know that people get scared because they don't know what contracts actually mean. If you go back to my original definition, which is the measurement of the expectations of both parties, basically that's just a fancy way of saying clarity, right? You're just giving clarity as to what you're doing. And don't be scared with contracts. I mean, because I'm a lawyer, I have to draft them in a very specific way. But I have clients who are like, just dumb them down, make them very simple. Um, just include like the very necessary clauses. And I do that, right? They don't need to be like super elaborate. It just depends on the project and it depends on the expectations. What is contract drafting? So I draft contracts for O1s and I draft contracts for my business clients. For my business clients, I draft the operating agreement, which is the contract that governs their business. And I also draft their service agreement. So let me give you an example. So if you're a photographer, right, and you want to take photographs for, I have like a lot of clients who do this to supplement their income. Like they will photograph weddings because you can make good money photographing weddings. The contract between the photographer and like the bride and groom, that is a service contract that I draft. And this is an important contract because it importantly identifies who owns the IP, who owns the intellectual property that is created as a result of this relationship. Now, usually in these types of relationships, it's going to belong to the bride and groom, but that's just because we contract it. But it could be, I could contract it so that everything belongs to my client, and then my client, the artist, licenses their IP so that every time somebody is using their photograph, they get a paycheck, right? I mean, this is very an easy way to establish your income, like a passive form of income. So the contracts for O1s are contracts that govern the O1 beneficiary and the person, place, thing, company that is hiring the O1 beneficiary. That is a contract. It's outlining the work that's going to be done for whatever specific time period. So O1 contracts are very different from real life contracts, just because they're different legal rules that I have to follow. That's it. But the essence is the same. We're talking about measuring expectations. So whatever you're expected to do for the person who's utilizing your services versus what you're expected to get back from the person who's utilizing your services. Do you communicate if the client's portfolio is not strong enough to apply for the O1? Well, in our firm, we have something called O1 portfolio review. So I am reviewing portfolios for the O1. I don't know if this structure is going to change. My work, hold on one second. Yeah, you could just drop it off. Okay, I'll sign it. My structures change all the time. I'm always trying to do what's best for our clients and what's most efficient for the client. So sometimes clients want to talk to me and sometimes clients don't want to talk to me. But as of now, my structure is to do 2 portfolio reviews with the client. For my business clients, we have a business strategy session, which is where I will talk to you about what your business goals are and how I can bring them to life. So in the process, in the case of like the client who's a photographer, like that client wanted to be a fashion photographer, but also wanted to make money as a non-fashion photographer. So we needed to figure out ways that would assist my client in making money in the non-fashion world, because sometimes in fashion, you don't really get paid your worth at the beginning, although I do represent famous fashion photographers who kind of like started at the bottom and made it up. How much is the filing fees? I don't know off the top of my head. You have to go and look on USCIS's website. If you book a consultation, you'll get an O1 consultation booklet, and it will outline all of the filing fees, so the fees that go to the government, and it will also outline all of the legal fees, so the fees that go to the law firm based on which contract type you want with our law firm. So we're a little bit different compared to other law firms. I'm like very, how can I say, like type A. I have different sorts of boxes that you can fit in. You choose the box that best fits you and what your needs are. Not every box is equal. So this goes back to the expectations, right? I explained to you during the consultation, this box represents this box represents that. They're not all equal. You're going to choose what's best for you. And it's the same, like again, in real life, when you are dealing with your clients and when you're trying to get clients, you're probably not going to have the same contracts for the same services that you're providing your clients, right? It just wouldn't make sense because each service is going to be different. And it should be different, right? Because you guys are creatives, you're doing different things for different clients. But at the very, very, very least, you should have a basic services agreement that you can modify for each individual client, right? I'm not saying that everything needs to be the same or everything needs to be different. I'm saying at the very basic step, you need to have some sort of protection. It's kind of like if you're going out, at night by yourself. If you're a woman, you want to have like basic protection, right? You want to know like where your surroundings are, you want to have 911 on speed dial. I'm just talking about basic protections. And you need basic protection whether you're going to scale or whether you're not going to scale. How are RFEs addressed if it questions the critical and leading role played? RFEs are very specific to the client. We have specific meetings for RFEs. I've seen a million RFEs. I've been doing this for 15 years. So RFEs in our law firm are addressed with what's called an RFE chart. So I will identify the different types of issues in the RFE and I will tell you what we need. So we analyze the different information that is included or not included in the RFE, and then we address them point by point. But there's so many different RFEs, especially now with USCIS utilizing AI, that it's important to realize that it's not you or your attorney, it's most likely them. Although I will say there are lots of people who kind of like want to cut corners and go to people who are probably not experienced with O1s and cut corners and kind of that, like, you get what you get, right? If you're focusing on pricing, right? If you're focusing on pricing, then that's probably the sort of service you're going to get, as opposed to focusing on quality and the type of service that you want. I'll give you a horror story of two partners. One came to me. Oh, sorry. One came to me, approved right off the bat. The partner went to an attorney who used AI in the petition. So in New York State, where I am licensed, I don't know where that other attorney was licensed, but I'm licensed in New York State. We need to disclose the use of AI to you, right? This is part of the transparency that we have as attorneys here in New York. And in my retainer agreement, it explicitly states we do not use AI. So everything that I draft in my letters of recommendation, in my contract, in my legal brief, in my RFE responses, comes from me, comes from my mind, comes from my years of experience. It does not come from AI. And this petition was all AI. I mean, really poorly drafted letters. And, the person was ultimately unsuccessful. Hopefully, this person, will continue her career wherever she chooses to continue her career. Have you ever seen clients go from first time one? Yeah, absolutely. I've done EB1As for people who are on their OPT. It just depends on if you qualify. The biggest issue is people think they qualify when they actually don't. The biggest issue is attorneys will file cases when clients actually don't qualify. So I always tell clients, like, hey, I'm happy to file your case, but this is what my legal opinion is. And I don't think that you qualify. But if you have money to burn, of course, everybody deserves legal representation. I'm not going to turn somebody away unless it's a frivolous case. If it's a frivolous case, meaning a case that is baseless with no merit, I cannot file that petition because that would be an ethical violation. But a weak case for somebody who's really gunning for an EB1A when I personally don't think that they qualify, yeah, of course I can file it. If you think you qualify, chances are you need to speak to an attorney to get the proper assessment to see if you actually do qualify. 9 out of 10 consultations who are not my O1s who come for an EB1A assessment do not qualify. I mean, you just don't. The requirements are very high, and maybe later today, I have a lot of meetings today, but maybe later today I'll go over EB1A requirements, and I will talk about. I have a 100% approval rate, by the way, not because I'm very selective. I just have a very specific system to identify whether someone qualifies. So again, the problem is most people don't qualify. I have clients that I've done like 301s for. They will never qualify for the EB1A. They just don't do the requisite work necessary to qualify for the EB1A. It's not a quantity game with EB1A. It's much more nuanced, much more abstract. And most times clients are not willing to put in the work because, like I said, it is difficult. It's not easy. Um, yeah, Anastasia, you can come back anytime you want. You can come back anytime you feel comfortable. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think what is very important is mindset and understanding that as an artist, your artistic career is married or should be married to your business, because the arts should be protected by your business. They're not oxymorons, they go together. So just to repeat, when I'm talking about artists and creatives, I'm talking about anybody ranging from like a fashion designer to like a content creator to like a gamer, to all these different types of creative people. When I'm talking about business, I'm talking about company formation, so the protection of how you're delivering these services. I'm talking about trademarks, so the protection of the brand, so how the company is known. I'm talking about agreements, so how you're delivering the services to your clients. Is there an EBA consultation we can book to learn? Yeah, it's on our website. You can definitely book a consultation on our website. Just go to yaolawgroup.com, and then there's the contact me tab, and then we have different consultations. There's a specific O1 and EB1 consultation. The O1 consultation is cheaper than the EB1A consultation. It's an investment that you're making in yourself. If you want to do it, then do it. If you're not ready, then you're not ready. Does media coverage help? I mean, it's a requirement. So the quality of your media coverage would be analyzed during the consultation. So it's a requirement. So it's not that it helps or not. You got to have it. It's kind of like oxygen. You need oxygen to kind of live. It's a necessary part of both O1 strategy and EB1A. So I will be back later today. I don't know what time. I have a bunch of meetings. And a bunch of consultations, so I won't be back right away. But thank you everybody for joining. I hope that this is nudging you in the direction to understand that you don't need to be a starving artist, and it is absolutely not a requirement in 2026. One of our best performing videos is about LinkedIn as a tool for artists and creatives. So I urge you guys to think about utilizing LinkedIn actively as a creative and artistic person, because that would be again part of changing the mindset that artists and creative have about understanding that arts and business work together cohesively to get you to the direction that you want. And I think most people who are in the US, who came to study in the US, want to make money based on their creativity and artistry. It's a little bit more difficult, not because of the structures in place. It's just a little bit more difficult because of the stereotypes we have of artists, of them being like, starving artists, of them not having like a legal team, of them not investing in themselves, kind of these romantic ideas we have of artists and creatives. But yeah, I mean, all of this is possible. It depends on mindset. What are the main criteria for O1B? How's it different from O1A? I can't get into that discussion right now, but on my website, if you go to www.yaolawgroup.com, you'll see a bunch of free resources. I have free business resources and free O1. I think I even have like an O1 checklist. But O1B and O1A both are different in terms of criteria and different in terms of application, in terms of the benefits that you get. Most people gun for the O1B if they qualify, just because it gives you the most professional freedom, whereas the O1A doesn't. I also want to say one thing before I hop off, because I have a meeting. A lot of people seem to think that O1A is more elevated just because it's associated with tech and founders. And we do have clients who are tech, people who work in the tech space and people who are founders, but it is not better. The O1A is not better than the O1B. Just because you know of a tech founder that has an O1A, they do not have more professional freedom. In fact, they have less professional freedom than an O1B person has. So I'm not sure why, like the last, I would say, week of consultations, I've been getting this sort of feedback, and it's wrong. It's just like flat out wrong. It's just, again, marketing probably talking to friends and family. I mean, I'm not sure. But thanks everybody for watching. I will be back later today. I am not sure when. I have a bunch of meetings, but I hope that this is nudging you in the direction of changing your mindset. Bye, everybody.